So this is a quick lecture to talk about Sketchnotes that we thought we'd like to introduce to you guys, just because I think it's a really useful way to capture information from lectures, from kind of seminars, and from different types of workshops, and even maybe from the kind of tutorials that we do throughout the year. So over the last few years, we've used this kind of technique a lot to try and help you guys to capture some of the main objectives and ideas of the unit in the studio, because we ask you to read some very complicated papers and things like that. So it's just a quick introduction to what those are. So obviously, this comes from a book written by a guy called Michael Rhode, and it's the Sketchnote Handbook. So it's kind of written and coined by him. Talking about what sketchnotes are. So they're a rich visual notes created from a mix of handwriting, drawings, hand-drawn typography, shapes, and visual elements like arrows, boxes, and lines. And I think architects become really good at kind of representing their ideas in kind of the digital format, but I think at the same time we're losing the skill to be able to represent ideas really quickly in the kind of physical hand-drawn way. So these are really important for us to kind of hone and to develop over the kind of upcoming year. So Michael Rhode developed this because he was frustrated. He used to take his notes in a huge notebook, which was a lined notebook, which he used to have a pencil because he was so concerned that he might get it wrong, and he'd go back and rub out the mistakes and kind of repencil them in. But I think he kind of got really fed up with this because he never looked back through his notes, and it kind of ended up being a kind of a waste of materials and a waste of kind of resources and time. So he wanted to try something new. And he figured that by relaxing a bit and listening more intently, he might actually learn a lot more from what he was actually listening to and what he was trying to kind of achieve from the lectures and the seminars and stuff. With the intention to focus on capturing the big ideas, not just kind of writing every single thing down that he heard, but actually thinking about, okay, well, hang on, what is this person actually saying and what is the big idea? And he moved from a big notebook with a pencil to a small notebook with a pen. Now, we're not saying you have to use a moleskin with a pen, but it is kind of important to think that using a pen is quite good because you have to commit, and you have to commit quickly. Whereas a pencil is, you remain tentative, and you kind of always use the crutch that you could rub it out. The point is you will not have time to go back and rub out your mistakes. The point is to kind of commit and capture the ideas as quickly as you can, and kind of develop a typology of writing and sketching and kind of underlining things which start to be beautiful and elegant, and they become kind of historic kind of journals of your journey through life. And I think they become something which is really important as you kind of move through your life into kind of full adulthood and professionalism. So he's obviously, as I just said, more deliberate with what he writes. And he actually really enjoyed it. It's kind of fun. It makes taking notes and kind of listening in lectures and seminars much more enjoyable, because you start to kind of have fun and imagine how you might sketch or draw something that is a kind of a concept, rather than kind of sketching or writing every single note of what the lecturer was saying down. So like we said earlier, you can focus on the bigger picture and express concepts. And expressing concepts is hard. So you kind of have to start to kind of think about what that means in terms of how you kind of represent concepts as you go through this. And he coined the name Sketchnotes. So there is a website that's written, kind of co-founded. Well, I think he kind of set up the website. And you can find multiple different sketchnotes across the website of different types of sketchnotes. And they're not dry and detailed. Like I said, you haven't written down every single thing, but they're simple and clear. And you can quickly page back through them and capture, kind of remember certain things, because you will remember kind of drawings more than you will looking through all of the text, to try and remember one little element that you kind of noted down during the talk. And it's interesting because they become individuals. So they're not generic handwriting on a page, but they become individual to you as a person. And he kind of says his personality is baked into his sketch, and it's like chocolate chips in a batch of chocolate chip cookies. And they become visual maps. So architects typically and designers are very visual people. We like things in quite an ordered way. We kind of quite like beautiful things. So the idea that your note taking can also become something which is kind of beautiful and elegant is something which is kind of a really positive thing that we think you guys should try and develop. And also there are people who do this as a job and they get paid a lot of money. They sketchnote through meetings and stuff like that. So it kind of is a skill which could be potentially lead to work. And like we said, it's about concepts. So, you write your notes based on kind of meaningful thoughts and ideas, which your mind is collecting as you go through the talk or listen to the talk. And then you kind of put them away into these kind of beautiful notebooks that you capture and you go back to have a look at over the years. There is research that proves that listening to a talk, writing notes, and then also kind of seeing visual stuff is really important to kind of remembering things more effectively. And I think by listening, taking sketch notes and actually thinking about what those sketch notes might look like, but also then kind of re-looking at or re-listening to the lecture is a really good way to kind of embed that knowledge into your brains or our brains. So it's kind of, as this little diagram represents, you see stuff, you think about it, you hear stuff, and you actually use your body to kind of capture that information. And this is a kind of learning circle, which is really a clever way to kind of engage and understand your kind of learning process throughout the kind of studying that you do. And it's kind of a link between your brain and your head. And there is a lot of research that proves that kind of writing stuff down really does help you remember things more effectively. Like I said, they're each individually kind of captured. Everybody has their own individual kind of personality, and that's how they represent their sketch notes. So your style of handwriting, plus the way you sketch, plus the things that you kind of understand, how you underline things, the arrows that you draw, these all become your own individual kind of style. And it makes them unique, which means that you kind of have a unique selling point in terms of how you represent your thinking and your ideas. But as I said earlier, it's important to remember that you do them as quickly as you can in real time. So it's not about kind of listening to something and then sketching things frantically and kind of going back and representing your ideas. They become things which are actual kind of records of the moment in which you're studying. So I think it's really important not to think that you have more time to ever go back to repeat stuff, because you don't. So the idea is to actually be sketching as you kind of go through the lecture. Sometimes if you might have time to go back and kind of fix up stuff, but I think being very aware that as you get more and more experience with your life, you have less and less time. So kind of developing the skills is a good way to kind of have a skill that you can use for the rest of your life. And I think a lot of people go, well, I can't draw, so therefore I can't do sketch notes. But he's kind of point is kids draw constantly, and they might not draw brilliantly, but often you know exactly what they've drawn. And most kids draw all the time. So it's just kind of reconnecting with your kid's brain and starting to represent ideas. You're drawing a dog or a cat or a house or a rocket, you can convey these really quickly and really easily. They're not hard to draw. You don't have to be an artist. And he makes the point that there's 5 basic elements that you need to have great sketch notes: the circle, the square, the triangle, the line, and the dot. And you can see from these images that every single one of them is pretty much represented using those 5 basic elements, except maybe the donut, which is using ovals. But I mean, I think you get the point. It's not meant to be art. They're meant to be kind of representations of ideas or of things that are kind of quickly captured on the page. So like I said, ideas, not art. And as you can see, they're about thinking on paper. And if you look at the 2 images at the bottom, you've got a bad drawing of a dog on the left-hand side and a good drawing of a dog on the right-hand side. But the point of Sketchnotes is not that you're trying to represent these things so that they become sold as pieces of art, but as ideas on the page. So they're both dogs. You know they're a dog. And clearly they can express ideas effectively. So you would look at their previous image and you see the dog and you'd know that that was a dog. So if you're worrying about the fact that you can't draw, I think we all go down this rabbit hole of being perfectionists. We don't need to be perfectionists. The idea is to capture ideas, but it's more about learning. So eventually the things might become beautiful objects in the end, once you've got used to this and you've done this for years. But that's not the point of the exercise of sketchnoting. The point of the exercise of sketchnoting is to help you learn and understand and interpret things that you hear and capture them through representing. But the representations are not necessarily the outcome. The outcome is you understanding more effectively some of the stuff that you're kind of listening to and learning in all of the lectures that you're attending. So that's that. I hope that you enjoyed that, and we look forward to seeing some of your sketch notes over the next few months. Thank you.